Hello, thank you for joining BIP Chat. And you're going to be having a chat with David Pugsley. And both of us are chatterboxes. Very excited to be able to chat with you today about a subject that's so important, which is about the rise of AI in social media. So keep your ears peeled for this. First of all, though, some of you might never have listened to a BIP Chat. I'm going to quickly explain it. So my name's Penny Power. I'm very happily married to Thomas Power. We've been married for 35 years and we run a business. And he is an amazing networker and I'm a community builder. And together, our skills have created a community called BIP 100. And BIP stands for Business is Personal. And we seek out amazing business to business experts, but these people have to have really fantastic values. They have to have people that are willing to have meaningful relationships with one another and interested in co-creating and supporting. And as Thomas said, being very open, accepting the random in life and very supportive. So David joined us relatively recently. He is someone that I found really inspiring about the way he uses social media. He's been in business development for a number of corporates for the last 25 years and also helped many startups. Currently working with Salesforce. I say currently, well, I'm not saying there's anything on the horizon. Sounds a bit bad saying that.
No, I
So
like the currently.
currently,
I always think I'm
yeah.
only here for a bit.
Well, let's all live life on the edge a bit. I think that's the thing, isn't it? So it's really interesting to have you with us, David. Now, I've given a little whistle-stop tour of you, but let's just go a little bit deeper. Tell us a little bit more about your backstory.
Yeah, sure. So I am David Pugsley. As Penny says, I currently work for Salesforce. And have done for the past year. So I started out life in the Royal Navy as a logistics officer. So I did 20 odd years in the Navy, doing all sorts of different things. And then I decided I need to come into the corporate world or try and make some money anyway. I got myself into the IT industry in 1998. It's been sort of like a real voyage of discovery for me because I knew nothing about sales and nothing about really the corporate world. So it was like starting life again, aged 38. And so I was sort of like, it was a whole
Wow.
new world for me. So I recommend it to anyone. If you're a bit stuck, just start something completely different.
It's brilliant. And when you said that I know nothing about sales, I think you get these academically taught salespeople.
Yeah.
I went on a sales training course when I first went into sales at 19, and I thought there is absolutely no way I could be that scripted type of transactional
No.
person in business.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you carve your own way when you are relationship driven and a really good chap like you are. That's all you need to know about sales in a way, apart from having very good processes behind it.
Yes, yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah. And a
track things.
fantastic CRM system, don't you?
Absolutely, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Well, that is very true. I know the first one I got into was ACT back in the day,
Yeah,
years
yeah,
and
yeah,
years ago.
yeah. I've
Um,
used Max before.
you've used ACT. So yes, you do need that.
Yeah,
That's very,
yeah.
very true. So now, social media, David, you have really embraced it, even though you are very much an in-person, relationship-driven person. The way you've adopted it has been fantastic, and we're going to talk about really the rise of AI in the social media
Yeah,
world, because but ultimately in sales, we just want to create trusted, meaningful relationships with people, don't we?
yeah,
And
yeah,
then we've got
exactly.
this AI thing, haven't we, that's now emerging.
And I think, like all of these things, we've been through various phases, haven't we, in sales and marketing. And as you say, there's a sort of scripted, I'm going to send you an email and you're going to be very, very interested in what I say.
Exactly.
So we've all been there, and we've all been on the receiving end of it as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, that still happens. Which is okay for some, and I'm sure it produces results as well eventually, if you've got enough scale.
Yes.
So and then we went through the market, the marketing, which we're still in really, the sort of marketing world of kind of like let's automate marketing, and let's see what people click on, and then we'll follow up with them and try and attract them to our brand that way. And then, of course, now we've got AI on top of that, and my sort of feeling about this is the wagon is still rolling along this kind of like, well, if we've got AI, then that must make the emails we send even better because we can create them more easily. So you can ask ChatGPT, create me an email to my client to encourage them to buy something. And of course it will do it, and it will do a serviceable job at it. No one will read it, but it will look very good.
Lots of junk.
And the good news is now we've got AI on the other end in your Google inbox and things that will filter it out, so no one will read it.
What was the point?
And no doubt eventually we'll get AI answering it.
So funny.
So they can have that conversation over there. And so the marketing stuff though is sort of is interesting to me because what I'm seeing more and more, particularly on sort of my LinkedIn feed, is this sort of like picture AI type pictures generated, which all look the same to me, not very interesting, and some AI generated text. So I think that. For me, the whole thing about social media should be social and not just sort of like transmit. And I think that's where our marketing engines have got to, that they're just in the transmit mode rather than the listen mode. So it's sort of like how do we as sellers, and we're all sellers, let's face it, whether we own a business or we're actually working for a corporate, we're all selling something. How do we actually, as sellers, take hold of that and try and make it something more real and more interesting and more personal, which is why I'm a member of Business is Personal, because I love that.
Business is personal. It's interesting, actually, David, because I can't tell you how many times people write back to me now on LinkedIn and say, "Is this really Penny?" When I send a message.
Yeah, there you go.
We're just so losing trust, aren't we?
Yeah. And I think that is particularly the written word, is in danger of, because that was the thing in times back when I was a lad. The written word was actually you could believe what was in the written word, couldn't you? You read the paper, and if the paper said this, then that was okay. And of course, now we've reached the state of the world where actually things are not always what they say. Or not always what they seem. So that trust has been
it is, and
eroded, hasn't it?
It has. And the other area that I feel about it is ultimately one of our, as Tony Robbins would say, 6 emotional human needs is to feel significant to others.
Yeah.
And at the start of a sales process, if somebody's selling to you, you want to feel that you have some significance to them.
Yeah.
Don't you? That you're not just, and I know I grew up with telesales, and we obviously done mail shots and sitting on floors packing up envelopes with brochures and all of that. But that sense of significance should start really early on in a journey, shouldn't it?
Yeah, no, exactly, and I think you do it actually really, really well, because your sales process is quite good at that, making people feel significant, and particularly when you actually join BIP, you get a very nice welcome package and everything, don't you? The little box that you pack personally and everything.
But it does mean you are significant. It's not bollocks.
Exactly.
It really is true. We are so grateful for everybody that joins and contributes to the community and becomes a client and helps us to run a business. It's
no, I think it's lovely, and I think those sort of touches do make a difference, don't they? And
they do.
And I think
how can we do that though? This is what I find interesting, and I'm sure that's why CRM systems combined with this human touch is so powerful.
Yeah,
because we all have to work very hard to find the right client. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And we're all working very hard to be productive in the delivery of our work as well.
Yeah.
And so these tools are really critical for us, but how do we make it human?
Yes. And I think it's the online to offline transition that's so important, really, isn't it? Because your process where you sort of, you invite people to lunches, and I think it was about a year before you invited me to my first lunch, and it was about a year before I was actually able to get to one.
Mm.
And you've got to kind of keep the wheels turning during that year. You've got to accept that people are all at different stages, all doing different things, haven't you? And it's just because you send them, an invite doesn't mean they're going to either be able to come, accept whatever. And you just got to, and what I know from my work on LinkedIn is that, like the number of people who write to me and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't meet up, my father's died or something's happened or, I've got health problems or whatever," which is lovely that they're so open and honest.
Yeah,
And a real privilege actually. That
yeah,
but that's what life is about, isn't it? Life
no,
is full of these sort of unexpected
yes.
things, isn't it? And you've just got to accept that people aren't always going to be ready
No,
to be
exactly. Our
invited.
personal life impacts our business and
It
professional
really
life.
does, doesn't it? Yeah,
So when
yeah,
we look at the social media thing, it's so interesting, your brand. And for me, when Thomas and I looked and thought, oh, we'd really like to get to know David, it was really fascinating on your LinkedIn how you do two weekly things that are so not transactional,
no,
are just building David and getting us to know that you're fun and you have values. And they're two really contrasting things. So I'd
yeah.
love to talk about those. So on a Tuesday, tell us about your Tuesday post.
So Tuesday is a little half an hour, start 8 o'clock in the morning, podcast thing that a friend of mine, he's actually a colleague of mine at Salesforce. He and I were chatting one day, and he said, "Oh, I'd really love to kind of like interview you." And I said, "Well, why don't we just do a kind of like, one of these?" Right, and we knew nothing about LinkedIn Live or nothing about how to actually even get started. And so asked a friend, and he said, "Oh, you got to use this restream technology." And Big Bang Bosh, there we were live, and our first episode was hilarious because we were like, "Are we live?" And we're looking at our phones.
Indeed, there, I know what you mean. Oh, that's adorable.
And it's basically it's I love it actually. It's really close to my heart. It's a show of two men talking about things that men don't normally sort of talk about, particularly on LinkedIn. And it's about kind of like what like our last episode was this last week was about finding identity outside work, because of course a lot of our identity is wrapped up in work, and it's like how do you find identity outside of work? And the conversation was just fascinating because it strayed into all sorts of areas, and all sorts of led down to some really personal reflections from both of us. And some of the comments we got from people were extraordinary as well, which is it's just so uplifting, that sort of work, isn't it? When you,
It's so beautiful. I know. Do you know what
yeah,
it reminds me of? It was a very sober moment so Thomas and I created an academy, which was the world's first social network for business owners in '98. And, there was no LinkedIn or Facebook or anything like
yeah,
that. So
remember those days?
you remember those days, and it was very beautiful. And we very much, because there was no other things to compare you with. The only other thing at the time was Friends Reunited, and I
Yeah.
think that became a bonking place, didn't it? Apparently,
Did it? Oh, I never experienced that.
no, didn't you? I think it was. I remember newspaper articles about it. Created a lot of divorces, people reconnecting with
Oh,
ex-flames,
yeah,
school
yeah,
and things.
yeah,
But anyway, so I went to this funeral of one of our members, and because we wanted it to be friendship first, commerce second,
yeah,
um, we always believed in people sharing their life with one
yeah,
another. And in fact, our blog was split. If I did a blog, I could tag it on our site, whether I wanted to go into the social column or
yeah,
the professional column.
yeah,
So am I sharing knowledge or am I sharing me?
yeah,
Anyway, at this funeral, um, at one side of the room were all this person's work colleagues, and they
yeah,
had no idea about the fact he was a Christian, any of his values, any of the things
yeah,
he did. on the other side of the room were all his friends, and they had
Yeah.
no idea of what he did in his work life. And then we had this little tunnel of Academy members there that
Yeah.
knew the whole him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
was so
Lovely.
special. And we
Yeah.
could talk to his wife about the whole person
Whole
that he
person.
was.
Yeah. 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 No, the whole person is so, it's lovely.
It's incredible. And I would want to be remembered as the whole me.
Yeah. 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 Obviously.
Not just my arm. But, you know what
But
I
I
mean?
think, it is interesting, isn't it? Because, I joined the Navy, and I believed I had to be a different person as a leader in the Navy than I naturally was. And so it took me a long time to work out that actually I could be the whole person.
No, it's lovely. So and I know you don't have this sort of fierce transactional sales intention you bring
Yeah.
towards you. I always think you're like a beautiful flower that attracts the lovely bumblebee, rather than the fisherman going out into a pond,
Yeah. Yeah.
but in doing this, when you do have a potential client,
Yeah.
they can see this different type of human content, can't they?
Yeah, 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 exactly. And that's, I mean, it's sort of, I think to be fair, I started off with the kind of like, I didn't want to be like everyone else on LinkedIn. That was my
Yes.
number one thing. And I've always been a bit kind of like, creative.
Yes.
Sometimes that means you can be a bit odd.
Well, you can be both.
So I wanted to, I always wanted to be, like something like not just repeat other people's work or
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So I always wanted to be have something that was mine, that was out there, and social media allowed me to sort of get to grips with that a bit. And it's taken me a couple of years to really find my rhythm on it, but I think the necking pugs and the feet.
Yes, well, we haven't talked about the wet feet Friday. You're gonna share that.
Part of that part of that sort of rhythm, I suppose, of my week, and the nice thing, we don't always do necking pugs on a Tuesday. If Tony's busy or I'm busy, we just leave it for a couple of weeks. But we've been doing it for a year now, over a year. So that's quite pleasing. And I've been doing Feet Wet Friday, not every Friday. Again, it just depends how I feel and whether I'm traveling or, whether I can be bothered to get my feet wet. And
So if you're listening to this, Feet Wet Friday is literally, I watched the one recently where I think you were down on the Thames actually in London.
yeah.
Will take his shoes and socks off in a video and putting his feet in the water. I mean, very weird, very odd, but fantastic because it really makes people laugh.
And I think there's a really nice community about it as well, because people wait for Friday and people like texting me going, "Are you going to do it tomorrow?" And I'm like,
That's lovely.
and the honest answer is I don't know. I just decide on the day whether I'm going to do it or not.
So this is a very human touch. And so
Yeah.
we said at the beginning, we'd also talk about, the rise of AI in this world.
Yeah.
So give me some thoughts on that.
So I suppose, I started all this before sort of AI really impacted as much as it is now. And obviously it's getting more and more into our lives, isn't it? And I think the power, there is undoubtedly a power of AI, particularly, in, meeting summaries and, give me an action list or whatever. These things are, it's really good at some of these producing things that we used to spend hours producing. Give me a slide set on this, and it will actually, much to my amazement, will give me a slide set.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think there is undoubtedly the usefulness of AI, and undoubtedly we are entering a world now. I mean, somebody posted the other day about the fact that we will be the last generation that didn't have, robots helping us in our, in our sort of day-to-day lives, and to the extent that we will at work, to the extent that we will now. And I suppose it's a bit like, when we just think about robots, I was thinking about washing machines and hoovers and stuff like that, which we've obviously, we've gone into that world at home, but this is like the washing machine robot and Hoover type robots helping us at work, isn't it?
Yeah. The
And
interesting thing about that metaphor is when women used to be out drying their clothes and sitting on the doorstep chatting to
yeah,
each other, there was a much greater sense of community
yeah,
when the work at home was a job.
yeah, 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 exactly, exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's
So
how do we maintain that sense of community and humanness?
yeah, and I think, do you know what? I think we're pretty good at humans at kind of working this out. There are all sorts of people going, "Oh God, it's the end of civilization," as you know, of course, which we've had on every single industrial revolution
Exactly.
that any of us have ever been through. And, I was listening to poor Ed Miliband on the radio this morning, being cascaded because like the energy prices have gone up, and he's like, "Well, we're trying to do something about that." With green energy,
Yeah.
we've got to get there.
Yeah, exactly.
And so this transition period is always a bit uncomfortable for us as humans, isn't it? And I think, some of us have just got to find different, undoubtedly we've got to find different jobs, and that's going to be really, really uncomfortable. And some of us will get left behind, and then we've got to kind of work out how we look after those people, haven't we? Hopefully, we can look after them, and hopefully we can recognize that people are being left behind, and either get people reskilled
Mm.
into the new jobs that will inevitably appear. And I think what's quite interesting is that people, undoubtedly people who think they're safe, including me, will find actually you're not safe because AI will do some of this stuff, and
Well, I think we won't be able to be safe if we're passive,
yeah, no,
just
exactly.
passively sitting. I think that just looking at some of our business owners, people who staff that don't add value, that aren't creative, aren't problem solving, aren't providing that sort of uniqueness of being a human, will struggle. If
Yeah,
and but what I believe, very much in line with what you're saying, is when I just look at myself, AI, and I've only just started this, we've got a lot
yeah.
of automated processes that are brilliant in our business. I'm only just starting. It's actually increased my ability to have more in-person time with my clients.
Yeah, and I think that's the trade-off, isn't it? And
It's
that's the beauty.
absolutely, it's wonderful. It
Yeah.
is.
And social media is the same, isn't it? Because actually the number of clients I reach, every week because of,
Mhm.
my social media presence is exponentially bigger than I would have ever had
Absolutely.
in the old days. I've got 8,000 plus people in my network, and they, 500,000 people see me, have access to my profile.
Yeah, I mean, without doubt, I don't think maybe 5% of our clients have come somewhere other than LinkedIn.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, it's interesting, isn't it?
It
I mean, I,
really
I ran
is.
a membership organization in the city last year, and we were, traditionally it was like, oh well, ask bloggins, and bloggins will come along to a dinner, and that makes them join, and we've gone to about 10-15% of our members coming through social media now,
Yeah,
which is a huge difference
it
for.
is. It is. It's knowing how to blend it all, but not lose your soul in it, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. And I think that's where I'm really keen to make sure that soul is part of it, and soul is, and that's why I think it's so important to be yourself on these things and not try and sort of like, kowtow to the AI crowd.
No. No, absolutely.
I mean, it can help some people, don't get me wrong. I mean, not everybody is comfortable to be on social media. I totally get that. And so it can help them get over that hurdle, can't it? Just, give me a post or whatever. It
Yeah.
can help people get that post out there if they want to, take that baby step. And that's great, isn't it? But I think that it's sort of like using that as the baby step rather than the whole step, isn't it?
Well, I think people need to recognize that who they are is always far more interesting than what they do. At a human level, when we hear these backstories of people, when I
Yeah,
get to feel who you are as a person and know, if we went out for a dinner with you, if we went out and had an evening together, I know the sort of way that we would have fun. That's much
yeah,
more interesting than
yeah,
and
yeah.
I think we need to lighten our lives a bit, don't we? But
Well,
for
I think, that's the joy of, Think Friday, because people,
exactly,
people,
it's
some people
wonderful.
think it's really serious, but
I know it's brilliant. It's absolutely
most
brilliant.
don't.
Well, I think it's been a lovely chat. I hardly remember that we were actually recording this. So if you've been listening to this, everyone, I hope you've enjoyed the chatter that David and I have had. And yeah, start following David. You'll really enjoy it. So David Pugsley, if you can't see it on the screen, if you're not watching the YouTube, spelled Pugsley. Brilliant name. And or of course I can connect you to him, but you'll find him on LinkedIn and have some fun watching some of his previous posts. And I think I just want to finish with, I know we didn't want to make this a CRM conversation, but I did think it was fascinating talking to you about what you do in the CRM world, because it's important for us to realize CRM is not just a sales process. It's very interesting
Yeah,
with you working in local government and
yeah,
um, and and in defense, because you were sharing with me, for example, the police force, they might want to be able to track victim experiences and keep a good.
yeah. I think one of the great things, that and one of the reasons I'm really glad I joined Salesforce was they have actually turned this whole model on its head and sort of said, well, actually half the battle with dealing with local populations and citizens is actually communicating with them. And if you actually communicate with people, to your point earlier about actually making people feel special, it does make them feel special. And if it's if they're a victim of a crime or something, and you are proactively reaching out to them saying, don't worry, we've got this covered, we're still investigating, this is what's happening, all that sort of thing, it makes a huge difference to
Well,
people.
I think it builds massive trust. So we had a very big family trauma with our daughter,
Yeah,
and we heard nothing. And
no,
they rang me and told me that they'd closed the crime.
which is not what you want to hear, is
It
it?
was just horrific, actually.
Yeah, yeah,
And I just think that, yeah, in all ways, making people know that they matter and
yeah,
build that trust, and in local government and in defence and in all these sort of ways that we want to feel safe in this country.
yeah,
It's nice to know that they're using systems that might make us feel more important than just a number.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So been
Anyway,
fascinating talking with
lovely,
you.
lovely to
Really,
talk to you.
really appreciate it, David. And I hope you've enjoyed it as a listener. Maybe it's inspired you to be a little bit more human, maybe even a little bit, more open about your life. And I've really enjoyed it with you, David. Thank you so much.